This tremendous shift in the whole paradigm of agriculture, from industrial agriculture to a new vision of agriculture, would need to proceed through several stages, each of which builds on the previous stage. And as per envisioned in this plan, that transition would have 4 phases. There would be the phase of immediate survival, getting food to hungry people, then building food self-reliance for these communities of the climate or the flood evacuation. And the third one would be creating a rich polyculture. I'll go into that. And then finally establishing thriving farming cooperatives. Let's go through each of these. Some of the strategies that can be used to achieve at least minimal food self-reliance as quickly as possible. People are going to need food immediately. There are many wild foods that could be harvested at the time of year we projected. In addition, we are only an hour or two from the sea. The possibility of harvesting sea vegetables, gathering sea mollusks, can acquire donated seeds to grow sprouts. That only takes 3 days or so to have a crop of sprouts. Microgreens maybe take a week. Fermenting of wild-crafted foods and microgreens to extend the availability of those foods. We could engage in labor exchanges with local farms for some of their stored foods. There are fields of overwintered crops that could be gleaned, particularly brassicas. We could cultivate insect foods. They can produce quite readily for those who might be into that kind of thing. Also, there are wild sources of protein that could be gotten, egg production, if there were donated chickens and ducks. And then, of course, there are possibility of getting food donations. Some of the benefits of going through this first phase of all hands on deck, exploring different ways of sourcing food in the emergency phase, it would begin to shift people's values and practices with respect to food. They would experience the possibilities of local self-reliance. They'd learn to collaborate and share for their collective survival. Building that kind of cooperative spirit is essential for all phases that would follow. They'd learn about new approaches to growing food, become more conscious of their nutritional needs, and experience the health benefits of eating local, organic, fresh foods. The second phase would focus upon becoming self-reliant in basic foods. The goal of this phase is to attain, as they say, food self-reliance, and it would enable the transitional communities to move from survival to having their own food production. They may not be producing their own fruits, nuts, grains, etc., which require time to establish, but there are avenues through which they could have garden crops that are producing substitute sources of nutrition. Some examples: production of legumes would provide good sources of protein. Root vegetables, tubers, squashes are good sources of carbohydrates. Greens, brassicas, fruiting vegetables are good sources of minerals, vitamins, and enzymes. And certain seeds like sunflower and pumpkin seeds would be good sources of oils. So all of the essential food nutritional needs of the community could readily be brought online within the course of a single growing season, which is what the second phase is about. And the second phase should also be concerned with the growing of storage crops, foods that would help the community get through the coming winter. And that would include dry beans, winter squash, tomatoes for canning, cucumbers for canning, cabbages and other foods for fermenting, and root crops for storage. In the third phase, the emphasis would be on establishing a rich polyculture. That is establishing a diversity of useful plants so that the communities can have all kinds of plant-based resources that will enhance in the long run their self-reliance and can begin to supply small-scale agro-industries that will help create income for these communities. Some plants that they might want to emphasize in developing polycultures are all kinds of fruit trees and berries, perennial vegetables, nut trees for food and oil, quick-growing deciduous trees for coppicing, bamboo for construction materials, nitrogen-fixing bushes and trees for building soil. Also flowering trees and bushes that attract pollinators, medicinal plants, flowers for flower essences and scented oils, hedgerow bushes for wind blocks and fencing, fiber plants, trees that are good for pole materials, and bushes and trees that provide nice habitat and food for wildlife. Additionally, in this third phase, there would be a lot of effort to build up the food production infrastructure, installing hoop houses, compost systems, food storage facilities, conducting educational programs on how to grow food and how to preserve food. Also developing organic methods of suppressing garden pests, watering systems, and so forth. This takes us to phase 4. Phase 4 is a culminating phase in which you try and bring the communities to a place in which they are establishing thriving farm cooperatives. This is important because it brings up how these transitional communities can help the whole society. And at the essence of this is getting increased amount of farmland to bring within these farming cooperatives, and then to popularize farming cooperatives within the surrounding farming community, so that the whole of your farm economy within the region becomes based on these sustainable farming cooperatives. And through that, you bring about an enhancement in the local economy, the local environment, and increase cultural richness. The end goal being a total revolution in agricultural production in rural societies.